Hi everyone, welcome to Invent Your Mind. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Gayani. I am an intellectual property and business law attorney. That means I do trademark, copyright, patents, patent due diligence. I help people from all over the world who want to get those in US. And I also do corporations, benefit corporations, LLCs. And those are mostly for California because I'm a practicing attorney in California. So with that, this channel is about bringing on entrepreneurs and people who are doing cool things. So I came across Jessa and Laurel in that way. They actually have created a company. They're business strategists, strategic partners, right? I totally messed that up. So, but owning up to today's that day. So
Yes.
like I say with all my other videos, this is for information purposes only. If you would like to connect with Jessa, Laurel, or me, I will put the information below and I will put their correct titles after we start talking. So with that, Laurel and Jessa, thank you for joining me today. Please introduce yourself and give me the title since I'm obviously didn't have enough coffee or something.
Oh, it's like we said, it's the new moon in Virgo, right?
Exactly.
I'm Laurel. I'm co-founder of A Stellar Co. And you're right on the money. We are business consultants, strategists, strategic planners. It's all the same thing. And we started about a year ago. And Jessa.
Yeah, I'm Jessa Spainhauer, and I was waiting to see what title you're going to give us. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what we should call ourselves. So yeah, strategic business planners, business strategists, co-founder, whatever. We're true consultants. We'll be whatever you want us to be.
And you guys have your own, you gals, have your own, podcast, which I've been on, which is amazing. I love the entrepreneurial side of both of you. And I know you also have other entrepreneurial ventures going on. But I also wanted to kind of talk about why you started Stellaco. What is Stellaco? Because I like the concept, how you explain it to be. So I kind of wanted to share it. This is the type of, businesses that are coming up and the strategists out there who are helping to build those businesses.
Yeah, thank you. Laurel.
Go for it. Oh, I was going to toss it over to you. I love this. So A Stellar Co., we're business consultants and we are stakeholder capitalists. So we started A Stellar Co. because we believe in the stakeholder capitalism movement and creating value for all of our stakeholders, doing business a bit differently than the traditional maximize profit model. Of course, profit is pretty crucial to business, but we also consider our role in society, our impact on all of our stakeholders, including the environment, which we elevate to the level of a stakeholder. And our little niche is we like to incorporate regenerative practices into companies' strategic plans. So what's really fun is we just love strategic planning. It just comes really naturally to us. We've noticed with our clients who engage us, we have this one-page strategic plan and we walk them through their mission, vision, values, and their financials and their quarterly priorities. And the last couple compliments we've gotten is, oh, I can breathe easier knowing where I'm going and what I'm doing. And then we just build upon it from there.
Yeah, and Laurel and I met, we were working at a company together and we were both on the executive committee. And so when we met, we were going over having a lot of these conversations specific to the company we were working with. And my background is in business. And so on the side, I was helping friends with their business and just something I always like to do. And as Laurel and I got to talking, more over time, that we were realizing that we had a lot of shared values and vision for what we wanted to do with our career. And then we decided that we wanted to do our own consulting company. We wanted to work specifically with small businesses because we'll work with big companies too, but we like working with small businesses because you can implement change quickly. and there's a lot less hurdles. And especially with startups, you can get things going off on the right foot instead of fixing things that have already maybe been implemented and changing behaviors and all that. But we realized that as we started the company and we talked about who we wanted to work with, there was like a specific type of person rather than a specific type of industry or company. And as Laurel said, you know, it's what we have learned as stakeholder capitalists, and that businesses don't exist solely for the purpose of generating profit, but to give back to their communities, to give back to the environment, to the people that are working there, and to their customers. So we were just really motivated by our values and bringing our skill set and experience to other companies. Yes.
Sorry, I muted myself because I'm in California. So are you guys? And there's leaf blowers outside.
Do not get me started on leaf blowers. They are the bane of my existence. I don't understand.
And it's
Every day, Friday, 8:30. I don't understand.
And they're actually supposed to be pretty bad for the environment too, I heard, because they blow it back up, and it's we could get into that later, but let's
yeah, no, I get it. I have to mute so many calls because of the leaf blowers, and I don't understand. I don't understand the purpose. Where are they blowing it? They're just blowing it back and forth across the street to each other. Why? Yeah.
I'm like, it's so funny. Today it's a new moon in Virgo. So here we go. So let me ask you too, so somebody out there who's listening and they're like, okay, because I think the business consultant term can be kind of vague, and it encompasses a lot of different things. And of course, like for me, somebody like attorney is easier, like, right, because we have a specific role, but you guys are more about like taking a problem or looking at an organization and then streamlining, like you said, incorporating regenerative practices. What does that mean, and when should somebody reach out to you? What's your ideal like client reach out?
Yeah, great question. And first of all, reach out to us immediately. And I think where we actually just had a conversation about this a week ago as we were going over our own strategic plan, and that really, I think it's hard because I think anybody can use an accountability partner, which is how we view ourselves with our client. And we don't have all the answers to every single problem, though we're pretty close. That's good. But we usually know how to troubleshoot, and it's kind of that approach of figuring things out. And you know, Marie Forleo's "Everything's Figure Outable," like we have heavily borrowed and quoted that and attributed that to her. And so often what kind of drove me initially to this world was that a lot of my friends, like I was saying before we started this business, they were running companies on their own, and it can be very isolating. And the company I was working for before had a single owner, and there's a lot of pressure on you for the decision making and just having a sounding board. And you know, it's kind of like with therapy or something, as soon as you say it out loud, you've solved your own problem. And so we want to be that person for other people, and whether that's a specific problem or just kind of having somebody they can call and talk about their day with. Like we have one client, and she just wanted to work on incorporating more sustainable and regenerative practices into her business, but she's already doing it all. And when we talked to her, she's like, I've done my priorities for the week, plus I did 10 other things, and these are the next 10 things I want to do. And we're like, great. You know, and it's great to work with. And we have other people who are like, I don't even know where to start with my priorities. I have this very specific problem I need help with. I'm stuck. And so it doesn't really answer the question about when, but really I think it's like, I guess, you know, if you have a specific challenge you're facing, you're not getting to where you want to be, maybe you've plateaued, or you're just getting started and you don't know what to do, or you just want a sounding board and just partners in a journey with you.
Yes.
Yeah, Laurel, do you want to add something to that? Sorry, because of the unmuting. But
yes.
I
had to mute
it authentic.
Yeah, I've got I have airplanes going overhead every like 30 minutes. So I'm like, meep, meep. I underline and build upon what Jessa said. We've noticed that that people are most attracted to us, and we understand what they need and what they're looking for when we just have a normal human conversation. Usually our clients are referral based, or they hear us on our podcast, or they hear us on your podcast, or they see us on a panel talk about some topic that just kind of, they go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Oftentimes people are like, oh, I didn't know what regenerative business was, or, oh, they're sustainability experts, or, oh, I'm disorganized. They look like they could organize my business for me. Oh, like it's these like revelation moments where they hear us talking about something and it resonates and they go, oh, I want to learn more about that. And then we meet with them and figure out, okay, like what do you have? What do you don't have? What are your values? What's your business's role in society? And depending on how they answer or can't answer those questions, that's kind of how we go, okay, sounds like our process, our proven process is we have an introductory questionnaire that's pretty high level with questions like I said, what's your business's role in society? Do you have core values? Have you mapped those out? Where are you going? And then we also do a detailed business intelligence assessment with our partners at XQ Innovation, because that helps many people who don't have their values outlined in their business really understand what those values are, and also how they want to communicate with others, what motivates and drives them. And so after we've done the intro and then the assessment, then we work on their strategic plan, and we don't advance onto any other problems, anything else until that strategic plan, front page. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's 2 pages front and back. Once that's done, then we can move on to whatever project, task, whatever else they need. Because without your mission, vision, values, your North Star, where you're going in 10 years, 3 years, specifically in 1 year, and what you're doing on a quarterly basis, none of that else matter. None of the other things matter. They're just distractions. So the people that we like are people that are interested in going through that process with us. They're like, oh, I would love to investigate what I know and don't know about my own business. Oh, I'd love to investigate this new world. Like Jess was mentioning, one client, our reoccurring meetings with her, we like to have ongoing accountability partnership meetings to help them implement the strategic plan. Our ongoing meetings with her, it's like, oh, I realize that you have a breadth and depth of knowledge about sustainability. Instead of me going and researching in the black hole of the internet for hours and getting lost in all the terminology, how about you just tell me what you've learned over the past 2 weeks, and I'll just get all my information from you. And that's been a great value add for her.
So you brought up a good point. What is a regenerative practices?
Yes. So we like to explain it that sustainability is a little bit easier of a term to understand, but regenerative business is a step beyond being sustainable. So sustainability is you've set up your business to be long lasting and resilient to change. So it's kind of like a continuum, like a steady status quo, so that when something disastrous happens, you're pretty resilient. You can bounce back. And
like COVID-19, maybe,
yes.
They are out there. If you're trying to pivot, maybe reach out to you guys.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And the way that we define sustainability or kind of being resilient to change is to create value for people, planet, and profit. We think of it as top line revenue, people, planet, profit. It's a pretty easy way to distill it down. Plus we like threes. Number 3 is a great number. And so regenerative business, it goes beyond that. It actually creates value, closes a loop, eliminates waste, and is a business that grows and scales by doing good things. So taking care of its stakeholders, actually have a positive impact on the environment instead of just minimizing a negative one. And incorporates people, planet, profit into their business model, into their top line revenue. So that when you do business with somebody, you are by its own nature doing good things for society, good things for the environment, and stimulating the economy in that way.
So I know both of you talk about Torrey project, so I wanted to give you a chance to, it wouldn't be a interview with you guys with you without talking about it, right? So uh, because I interviewed David Farron on my channel. I will link those videos to this, at least one of them. But you actually took that Torrey project, so I wanted to kind of chat about that too, and both of you can jump in and kind of talk about how that um, being part of first inaugural Torrey project class kind of impacted you to launch Stellico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll start.
or actually, can I start? Because I wanted to start with like the very, very, very beginning, and then
That's where I was
pass it off to
going.
Larry. Okay.
Do it.
I'll start my story, and then you take over where you stepped in. So this answers to your earlier question, like how did we get started? And so this was probably 2.5 years ago, a year and a half ago. Whatever, time is fine. We have no concept of time anymore. But it was 1.5 to 2 years ago, and where Laurel and I had met, where we had worked together before. We were on our way to a Padres game for the company, and for whatever reason, I took a shared Lyft ride, which I never do, but I did. I think because I was going downtown, and I'm like, oh, people are probably going downtown. And these guys got in the Lyft and were just like, what do you do? I said, oh, I work for an environmental consulting company. And they're like, oh my gosh, we are in our MBA program at USD, and we are starting a net impact club. And I said, okay, I'm like, you need to talk to Laurel, one of my colleagues, because she's a USD alumni and she's a sustainability expert. And I got their number, gave it to Laurel. Laurel then met with these students, and then Laurel, let you take it over where you stepped in. It's a story of my life. I'm like, here, Laurel, do this.
It's like the starry connections usually start with Jessa, and then they kind of trickle through and permeate our whole lives. And so these two gentlemen kind of did like an interview with me, like a professional career interview, like how did you arrive where you are? How did this happen? And I just talked about a bunch of stuff, and they invited me to speak on one of their panels at University of San Diego about sustainable entrepreneurship. So it's fascinating when we talk about the definition of sustainability, because it means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And for the purposes of this panel, it was, how do I be a leader and create a positive impact on the environment and have a sustainable business financially, and, not treat people terribly. And I was like, great. And so there were several of us on the panel, and they asked us a series of questions, and the gentleman a couple seats to my left kept saying things I had not heard of, like vernacular that, like I said, this is how we attract our clients. I like perked up and was like, wait. And I kept wanting to high five everything that he was saying. I was like, yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. And then things I would add, he, his eyes would get bigger, and he'd look at me the same way I was looking at him. And so after the panel, he came up and he's like, we have to go to lunch because I feel like we have things to talk about. And I asked Jessa if she would go to lunch with me and this guy, and we sat down with lunch with David J. Farron, downtown in Little Italy. Uh-huh. And we said, Dave, we really want to launch a company. We just want to
hold on. Can I interrupt you? Well, I already did, but I'm going to interrupt you. I'm aware. So my recollection is slightly different. Is Laurel and I had a meeting in the midst of all this about being like, okay, we're going to start a business. We are at happy hour. Like, now what? What do we do? We made the decision to start a business, but it's like, now what? And she said, oh, I was on a panel with this person who is starting an incubator, business incubator. I'm going to reach out to him. And in my mind, I'm like, we are not ready for that. Like, we just literally decided we're going to start a business, which then, of course, Laurel reached out, set up lunch. And she's just like, that's Laurel's like MO. She's like, I see this. I want it. I'm going for it. And then we had lunch. So as part of our business journey, sorry, Laurel.
That's a crucial point, because Jessa was like, we're gonna do this business, we're gonna do this together. Now what do we do? And when we met with Dave over lunch, we talked about a lot of things, and he invited us and said, hey, I'm starting this thing called the Torrey Project, and I would like to officially invite you to be our first cohort members. And we're like, oh my God, this is, and after we went to lunch, you know, Jess and I were on our own walking back, and we're looking at each other and we're like, this is unbelievable. We need to seize this opportunity. And Jessa, I think you had a shred of emotion.
Yeah, I was just like, we're doing it. Like, this is happening because, you know, it gets into that fear of like being a business owner and risk, and you really have to address it. Like, oh, I said I wanted this. Now the universe is bringing these opportunities, and it's a clear path for this to happen. And so it's really easy to step back to where you're comfortable and stay in that comfort zone and not take that step. And the Torrey project was just a huge catalyst for us to really to drive that forward, because we could have always just kind of half-heartedly done this on the side or moved a lot more slowly. And so we were so excited. And even just for us starting a business and being able to tell people, hey, we got accepted into this program was huge. I mean, it was a huge confidence booster, and people took us seriously. They're like, oh, you're actually doing this. And then during that lunch too, Dave was talking about all the things we were feeling, and he was like, this is stakeholder capitalism. And we're like, oh, there's a name for that. There's a name for treating people well and making money, and that's okay, but that's not the only thing that's important. And all these values, and that was really what the entire ethos and mission of Torrey Project is the message of stakeholder capitalism, and letting people know that there's a different way of doing business and you can still make money. And in fact, you're probably going to make more money over a longer term. Yeah. And be more successful than just focusing on the short-term profits and returns. And so going through, yeah.
Oh, no. I was just going to say stakeholder capitalism. It's, you know, it's so simple, right? Like it's just like if you think about your body as a like system, if you take care of your body, it will take care of you. Like, so I feel like, you know, the other, you know, this stakeholder capitalism is the same idea. You take care of the community, the nature, the environment, and, you know, you still make money. You could actually make more money because you probably wouldn't be polluting out there or doing things that were not with integrity, that causing a lot of, you know, issues for businesses. And honestly, businesses who are spending a lot more money on legal battles, those they may not have to do if they were actually in their integrity, not to like blame and shame and blame, or whatever they call it. But I do think it's important to have these discussions to talk about, you know, why the integrity, doing business with integrity is important.
It really is. And you brought up a good point, a metaphor of looking at business like it's a body, it's a system, it's an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And that is essentially what many describe regenerative capitalism is. It's where you apply the principles of healthy living systems to the economy, to your business, to everything that you do. So like in the Torrey project, we had these Saturday long sessions where we explored our authentic leadership, conscious leadership, like what is the essence of Laurel, what's the essence of Jessa, and what are our personal values. And it was a lot of soul searching and self-awareness that started us off on such an awesome foot, because we were able to identify, where am I emotionally intelligent? Where do I need to work on myself and be the leader that I know I want to be with a long-term look? That to me is just like, you got to take care of yourself before you help other people. You got to you have to understand and be aware of yourself before you start a business. You got to understand what the essence of the business is and the essence of you. And if you are in right relationship with the business is in right relationship with you, you're adding value to each other, you feel fulfilled, that's regenerative. It just means we're kind of evolving and becoming more enlightened, or you could say we're elevating your business consciously.
I like that. I love that. I think the idea that we could elevate together, right? Like bring up together. So I've been talking about rising together. So I think next step is elevate together. So I love that. I also connected with you too, because I think we have a similar kind of awareness, and working with everything we are doing with mindfulness, awareness, conscious, conscious living, right? Like applying that to not just one part of your life while you're sitting in meditation, but to actually bring in that, incorporating that to in every layer of your life, or the fabric of your life, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I just quoted a current commercial for
I love it.
see, advertising works.
It
It's just,
does.
it's
It
still
appeals to
stuck
all
in
the
my head.
feelings. It's all the feelings.
I
And
know, right?
it's like being mindful or conscious, and exploring that and practicing it helped me realize the interconnectedness of all things, and nothing that any of us does but affects us all. And that's a good thing, and it can be used for good. I definitely have learned over the past couple years, I'm empathetic and super sensitive, and that is a strength and a tool. Whereas before, before I had consciously thought about it and practiced it, I thought it was a weakness. Like, oh, I just feel everyone's feelings, this is awful. And now it's like, oh, I can digest everyone's feelings and hold space for you. And I enjoy that. It's very fulfilling for me to listen to what people are telling me, all the things, hold that space for them, and then help them act upon it in the right way. And that me doing that personally in my own life feels really good. And when I have the space at a Stellar Co to do that for other people in our strategic planning meetings, I mean, we can use all the business jargon we want, but at the end of the day, it's going, tell me all the things, I'm going to digest this for you, and help you go in right relationship with yourself and where you want to go with your business. It's as simple as that.
Well, I think that's, oh, go ahead, Jessa.
Say, and with the mindfulness and just being like conscious and self-aware, that's where, you know, we were talking about earlier, like helping people define their values if they're not defined already. And if they are, revisiting them and reminding, like, these are what you said your values are. This is why your business exists. Like, this is what your passion is. And because that helps with the day-to-day decision making. It all comes back to like being aware and stepping out and saying, okay, why am I struggling with making this decision? Or why am I struggling with this problem? And usually the answer is just revisiting values. Like, does this align with what I've set out to do and who I am and how I'm going to work? And I would love to tell a story.
Yes,
I'll
please.
make it quick. But I have a friend, and I need to be careful about how I say this, but she works for a company that her values is not aligned with the leadership of the company. And I'm her friend, so my values probably align with her values more. So I'll just put that out there as maybe some, how this is all set up. And her company was taking on a client who was having an issue with their public persona because of an action they took that most people would see as a very negative action. And that's why they needed assistance with this image. And my friend called me and said, I don't know what to do. I can't work on this. I'm like, well, you have a few options. One is you take the paycheck, turn a blind eye, and you know, the paycheck's more important to you than your values. And I said it a little softer than that, but that's really what it comes down to. And to be honest, like, I didn't even mean it to sound like, oh, you're just doing anything for $1. It might be like, that money's important to you because it's going to allow you to pay your rent, to pay your bills, have a lifestyle, but you just need to be comfortable with the fact of like how you're making this money. You can tell your boss, like, listen, I don't feel comfortable with this. Like, I am not working on this. And knowing that the company values her enough to listen to her feedback, and that she's comfortable enough with the work and the value she provides to the company, that she has that autonomy to say, no, I'm not going to do this. And I mean, those were the only two issues I saw, and was like, I guess a third is she could tell the company not to work on it. And I think that was part of what happened. And at the end of the day, her decision was that she wasn't going to work on it. To wrap up the story, though, her company never ended up asking her to work on it, but her personal decision that she sat with was if she was asked to do it, she wasn't going to touch it. And not to be vague, but this is like a very like kind of like in the news issue right now. And I like don't want to be out anybody, but it's, but summary, closing the loop, is that she had to revisit her values to make this decision.
Well, I think it's really important if you find yourself, like, I remember, you know, I had to do a lot of self-awareness work. And there was a point where I was trying to figure out, like, if you could make the 6-figure salary and you could make all these things you could thought you will be achieving, but if you're unhappy, that's because your values and what you're doing is not aligned. And sometimes you may not even be at a space to even get to that awareness. But having gone through some of the exercises and work you do with mindfulness and everything, what I realized for me, it's really important. My core values have to be aligned with freedom, integrity, and justice and fairness. That if any of those core values are not there at a job I'm doing or somebody I'm working with, and I perceive something they're doing to be unfair, unjust, and limiting my freedom, or like not in integrity, that's just like eats me, like I'm just not happy. So I think it's same for business, right? If you have your core values, if you figure those out, when a business is going through a tough time, you could come back to those values and say, well, what is important? What can we shape? What can we pivot? What can we get rid of? Like the COVID-19 shutdown, like my practice is all virtual, but there are a lot of attorneys who have like nice offices downtown Lee's. And, so they had to kind of figure out now, do you keep doing this? Do you like the office? Does the office still serve a purpose, right? So, so those core values are really important. And I think it's really good that you two are so consciously aware and you're doing the work, that you could also help that businesses out there that may not have that perspective to help to come up with that, set to us, so they could identify it them for themselves, like you
Yeah.
said, you're collaborating, you're a partner.
Yes. We don't really, like I said, we don't move on to the next step until we've sorted out the core value, at least drafted them. They don't have to be super finalized. We have 5 core values, and they are there, and the way that we use them as filters and the stories that we have attached to them evolve and change over time. But they're in total alignment with, like, my personal values, for example, are truth, unity, and love, veritas, caritas, unitas. And
I love it.
And that to me is just my truth. It just is. That's in my knowing and in my intuition. And when I can use mindfulness to have a conversation with my intuition, and I know in my knowing that this, that, or the other thing aligns with those, I feel really good in making that decision, and I can trust that the universe has my back. So even if that decision, the results aren't exactly what I wanted, I don't consider that a failure, because it doesn't feel bad. It feels good. And the same goes for Stellar Co. Truth, unity, and love aligns with our 5 core values. So anytime we use accountability, curiosity, courage, wellness, and humor in our filtering and decision making, no matter what the end result is, we still feel really good about it. If, like, for example, if we have what we thought was the best client ever, and then something changes and it no longer aligns with our core values, and it fizzles out, and it's no longer the right fit for us, fine, cool, no biggie.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, because if that happens, by releasing that client, you're making space for a better client to come along, because you're not clouding your space with clutter. You're actually cleaning it up, so there's space. I truly believe in literally, like, this summer, all I did was declutter emotionally, physically, space wise, so I think it's important.
Yeah, I think I've talked to you about that just in a get to know each other call, because I remember you recommending a tool for me, and then saying no to something allows you to say yes to something else, and I think that is such an important, like, shift in perspective and reminder. Even for me, just like hearing you say this right now is like, yes, like I needed to hear that right now. And that's something that I've been personally struggling with a lot, is realizing that some commitments I've made right now is getting in the way of some other things that I really want to do. And so, surprise, Laurel.
Don't you leave me. Jessa,
no, I'm dragging you with me, so I just need to tell you what I'm doing. But but yeah, just the last like 24 hours. And, you know, we talked about the new moon. I was reading about the new moon, and it was saying like, now's the time to go for everything. Like, you know what you want to do,
Yes.
you know your goal, like now's the time to do it. And that's just reading that this morning was like, okay, yes, I need to say no to some of these other things. And and it's a reminder that it's like any relationship, it changes. Nothing's forever, except maybe a diamond, I guess, if we're talking about ads. But
we are
again,
forever.
Commercials.
Exactly. And so
marketing works.
yeah, so it's like being okay with like letting things go and changing things, and you know, nothing's static, and that's okay, and being comfortable again with just kind of taking that next step.
I think being comfortable with the change and the unknown is the key, and it's not easy. I mean, it's a practice. Like, I love that you talk about how you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, because like we could talk about these theoretically, but all of us are trying to practice it, right? Like, it's just a daily practice of decision to decision. Just like, you know, just because you work out for like, you know, 5 years, you can't just stop working out and expect your body to just hold up, right? Like, I mean, it will hold up better because you did build that muscle set, but if you want to maintain it, you had to keep doing it and improve upon it. So I think it's the same thing for these mindset, the mindfulness techniques we are doing and building into it. You know,
that's why I always read it as like, that's why they call it a practice.
exactly.
You know, it's like, instead of like being like, I'm trying to get better about like being not as hard of, first of all, I'm very easy on myself, but you know, I'm like, I want to do meditation every day. And if I miss that, I'm like, you missed a day, you know, like, why can't you do it? And I'm trying to be like, it's a practice. Like, you can do it tomorrow. You can do it later today. And I try to remind myself, and like what we're talking about, like making space for new things. And it's like, it's all evolving. It's a practice. There will never be a point where, well, I should say, I don't think there will ever be a point where any of us are like, you know what? Everything is 100% perfect and there's nothing I could do better.
Right? Then you're done. It's just like, you're done. You're done.
Yeah. It's like, well, now what?
You just become enlightened and you just don't exist in this anymore.
Exactly.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to get there. We'll see.
You become the goo.
So I had to say that's so funny because I was listening to a podcast. So my whole family is entrepreneurial at this point. So my brother, who's a medical doctor, he just launched a podcast about stumbling onto mindfulness with his fiance, and he is totally type A. And so he was talking about when he first started mindfulness, he thought he could meditate for 30 minutes because he's that person.
Oh, I love it.
And the disappointment he had when we couldn't do it. So maybe will put a link down here, but I will share it with you too, because I think the whole idea is we could take these things, and people who are talking about it, some of them are, of course, is much more far along. But, you know, I think we had to be compassionate. And going back to my brother, he told me just recently, because I was being very critical about something, and he said, well, think of it like if Dalai Lama is sitting next to you hearing this, would he be upset with you?
Right.
What would he be this critical? Because that's the space you want to bring that in, you know, like somebody who is very compassionate, like, because we are so critical of ourselves sometimes, even when we are practicing compassion, and I try my best to do that. There are cycles I go through and I will forget.
Yeah, I think that for me as a budding entrepreneur, always trying to learn, self-awareness also comes down to I'm type A. I'm incredibly competitive and I'm impatient because I feel like I know the answer and I see every single step and nuance that gets to the finish line. And when people aren't going at my pace, or they don't see it, or they can't see it, I'm like, it's so obvious. Come on. And so I've worked the past several years on patience, listening, and all of that comes down to compassion and forgiveness. Forgiving myself for being impatient. The mindfulness for me is being very thoughtful, purposeful, and aware about your choices. And so my daily habit that I'm working on right now, this is a nod to the book we like, Atomic Habits. It's like,
I love that book.
Yes.
Right?
James Clear?
Is it?
There,
Yeah.
boom.
Boom. Yes. I just finished that on Audible. So I don't read, I listen
Yes.
because I read a lot for work I do. So my eyes are like, I give it a rest. But anyways, let's talk about I love
Yeah.
that you had the book.
It just is like little baby steps to the elevator. Like I know within my knowing that I am love and I am light. And so when a challenge or something comes in my way and my initial reaction is fear, I've learned in my practice to take a second and acknowledge that that's fear. And I've got two decisions. I either make the choice out of fear or I make a choice out of love. And when you talk about that in business, it can put people off because they're like, oh, I need to make decisions from a place of love. Like, I need a paycheck. I'm trying to live. It's COVID. Like, come on. And it's like, well, that's a fear-based decision. You're terrified of what's to happen in the next hour. So don't think about the next hour. Think about the exact right now and being mindful about the only thing you have control over is your choice and your decision. And
I love this. I think it's a good philosophy. Stay in the moment, right? Stop with catastrophizing or whatever they call it. I can't say that word right now. Like just going to the doomsday scenarios, right? Because I mean, it's easy. Easy thing is to do doomsday. Like you just had to open the news, Facebook.
I have this rock here, courage. That's one of our core values. And we describe it as having the courage to do what is right, even when it's hard. The easy way out is taking the easy way out. It's easy to get angry. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to give up. It's easy to maintain status quo and never grow. It's much harder and much more rewarding in the long term if you're consciously trying to do something and work on it. It's more rewarding. And when you learn how to live in the moment, even if it's for 10 minutes or an hour, like this podcast, for example, I'm not worried about the 1 million other things I have on my plate. I'm focused on enjoying us together right now. When you practice that, where every single thing you go to, you're showing up, and even though you might not be your best, you're just showing up and enjoying it, then you're infinite. You are timeless. You are in a constant state of flow. You are never in a state of panic or worry because you're always right here. Thank you for giving me this time to be with you.
There we go. So I do think, what about you, Jessa? How do you stay in the moment?
Oh, I'm terrible. I was laughing because Laurel's like, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm like, oh, I'm like sitting here looking at my nails. Like, okay, I need to do my nails. I just got a new nail home kit. Okay, there's a webinar I want to do after this, but then I want to go walk my dog for an hour. So I'll watch the webinar. Like, I have a really, 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 really hard time staying in the moment. And so something that helps besides caffeine is planning out my day and the space so I'm not reactive. And I know that, okay, after this, I have time to go walk my dog and I have to step back and stop thinking about it. But it is, and Laurel knows this, and this is why, kind of coming back to entrepreneurship and partnership, she knows I get distracted very easily and she doesn't. And so she'll be very patient with me when we're in a meeting and I'm responding to an email and then I have to come back, like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And she just sits and she waits. And I, in my side, try to minimize distractions where I can. And anyway, I don't have an answer. It's like really hard for me, but
it highlights how different we are and why our partnership is so good, because I wasn't always this patient, but I've made a focus that, we did this work with XQ Innovation about self-awareness. I go, Jessa is not like me, and Jessa is Jessa. And the essence of her is totally different than me. So she's not going to be the same way or think the same way or react the same way that I do. So now I know that Jessa gets distracted by all the things, and I have the capacity and ability to be more patient, then I will happily give that. Happily. That's my gift. And it makes me feel good to do that.
I love that.
Well, I'm learning that, my getting distracted is I'm very aware of my surroundings. And I'm very aware, I say this hesitantly, I guess now. I'm usually very aware of how other people are feeling around me because I am just I read the room. And for better or worse, like I might not be listening to what they're saying, but I can usually tell like, oh, they're getting along, or, oh, they want someone to move on. Like they're tired of talking, or, oh, this is really what they want to work on right now. And so I'm trying to embrace that as a skill, but also work on my meditation practice to help me like clear my mind and really like be more present and be in the moment.
I think, Jessa, actually, you're very much of an empath because you're
Yes.
reading the energy and you're taking it in. You're like a computer who's processing constantly of all the feedback that's coming. So I think that's why you feel like you have this many things, because your awareness is also kind of going like this, right?
Really,
So,
I'm not taking credit for that, but that's what I was thinking in my mind. As Jessa was speaking, I was like, Jessa's an empath. This is her
yeah,
gift.
she's so empath, and I am too. And the reason I recognize it is because I am. And I had to say, once I have learned to like control what I take in, not that I can all the time, because you know, it is a practice. It's kind of like cleaning out that closet, clearing, because I walk into the room, then I'm not reading everybody else. I'm kind of choosing where my energy is. And so you know, we had these discussions before where we talked about, you know, like Mind Valley, like energy healing techniques that I have done with like Jeffrey Allen. So I do think this way I come really helpful. But I wanted to get back to you two. I think go ahead.
Or sorry, no, what you were just saying though comes back to what we were saying earlier, is especially with the type of like learning more about myself and having that awareness is like knowing that that's where I need to say no to more things, because that takes up so much of my energy and that's what, for COVID, that's what really helped me realize, like when we were home and nothing was happening for like a couple months, I'm like not running late to things. I had so much space and like my anxiety was low despite this pandemic and all this uncertainty. It really helped me be aware of like, oh, I need to say no to a lot more things to give my focus and energy to the things that are more important to me.
And I will point this out to you as an empath. You just said your anxiety is low. It's because you were taking in everybody else's anxiety too. So of course you were feeling more anxious, because if you walk into outside, there's a lot of anxiety in our society, right? There's everybody who's like trying to meet a deadline, doing this, blah, 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 right? Like, so when this way, I'm so grateful for the energy work, because you could, like when you recognize and start clearing those things out, you could recognize what's mine, what's theirs, what's not mine. I think that's maybe another discussion, but I just wanted to point that out because
no, it's like, this is like a therapy session. I'm like, this is great. Let's keep going. You can bill me by the hour for this.
I know. It's like, but I would say what's really cool about what you two do is because of your mindset and your pairing, how you're dynamically like little different, like, you know, I think it's benefit to your client, because you're bringing that side to, I much rather hire business strategists who are conscious, because they can see the bigger picture. They are not just staying in the same old work. Like, you know, I get a lot of people reaching out to me about advertising, and they're like, oh, I could help you with your marketing. I could do this for you. I'm like, yeah, but your energy isn't what I'm looking for. So I feel like that's where you two, like what you're doing is really beneficial, what you bring and how you're shining your light, because you're literally like, you know, making a different type of impression, you know.
Agreed.
You're the next level, elevated.
It's built into our brand, not for a PR or marketing strategy, but because that's us. Like we are a Stellar Co. Because when we were thinking about, okay, what do we do? Firstly, to make it really simple, we like to work with people we like. We like to help them plan their business. It is energizing for us to do so. So people who want that energize us, and money is just the flow of energy. So we're going to charge some energy and exchange some energy and keep it flowing going. And that is how we think that we elevate your business consciously is not because, my background, we were talking about at the very, very beginning is like, what's your background? You're in a bunch of different ventures. My background is deeply scientific, technical, climate planning, renewable energy, sustainability, greenhouse gas emissions, ecological design work, like deeply technical. And then when you start a Stellar Co, it's like, whoop, we get to come way up here and see all of the constellations of people and things and knowledge and resources that we can connect to create something that needs to happen further. So I was working in this technical world and just not being the full expression of myself. And a Stellar Co helps me be the full expression of myself because I get to help other people elevate their thinking a little bit, look at it from a holistic level, and really go for it. Like, yes, and go for it. And Jessa taught me all of these things. Like, Jessa's background is so complimentary to me. She's a comedian. Yes, and is a thing that you do. That's what happens. And it's embedded, so it's so improved my quality of life being with Jessa. The concept of yes and is even integrated into like my marriage philosophy now. We've got 3 rules in our marriage: yes and love. That's it. and it works. And it's just like, when it comes back to the idea of stakeholder capitalism or regenerative capitalism, you do you, you do you, you're in the right relationship with the right business, with the right clients. It's all going to happen much easier.
Laurel, you did say
ecosystem will be healthy.
You did say your husband practices consciousness awareness too, right? I remember you made a reference.
I have to tell you, COVID has shined a whole different light on my husband. He was in financial sales, and then with COVID, that job is no longer there anymore, and he is in the flow. This guy lives in a constant state of now, and it's brilliant. It reminds me because I'm doing 3 jobs. We have a Stellar Co. Jess and I have Shirt Sauna, and then I work at this other company called Controlled Thermal Resources, and I'm on a couple boards, probably invited to some more boards. We're helping Torrey Project. We have all these things going on, and he is a constant reminder of being in the now, and that's how I'm able to do all these things. If I really thought and planned out and accounted for every 15-minute increment of everything I was doing, I would quit. But I don't, because I just live in the flow, and he's kind of my guiding light.
So with that, I think we are almost out of time. So I would like to just kind of get you, I think we kind of talk about our mindfulness, but any last thoughts on, how you keep saying, advice to a business owner out there that you were just like pivoting from COVID?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little late for this, but don't panic and don't be afraid to change and adapt. And I think that's something that we've all seen from a business or personal standpoint, is that things have changed, and what worked, 6 months ago isn't going to work today, or might not work today. And just kind of take a step back, get out of it, and think about how you can adapt to the reality that we live in today.
Love it. What about you, Laurel?
Yes, and take the time to do that, because doing that makes it that. Taking the time makes more time, because when you live in the now, you become infinite.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. And, this chat, this was really inspiring and energizing. I think we laugh a lot. My face kind of hurts a little bit with all this. So that's always good energy. For those who are staying until now, thank you for joining us. And until next time, and I will put information about Stellar Co and Torrey Project, all of that below this video. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.